Welcome to episode 3 of People of the Process. For this episode, I wanted to just pick another person from Asbury who I've gotten to know over the 3 years and who I think has been just a really solid dude. And I hope you come to find that too. I'm going to introduce you to Andrew Day. Andrew, want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, so my name's Andrew Day, and I do a couple of things here on campus. One, I work in the admissions office. I do the things like giving tours and stuff like that. I've also been an RA, so a resident assistant here for a year. And my current role now, I'm what's called an SLC, stands for Spiritual Life Coordinator. So I work with a couple other guys that lead on each kind of individual hall within our dorms, and I help them facilitate effective small groups. So that's kind of what I do. I'm a senior here at Asbury, so I'm about to graduate with both an accounting and a marketing degree, get my MBA. That's about me.
Yeah, we actually lived right next door to each other for one semester, and then I was like, "Nah, I'm getting out of here." And switched halls. But we managed to get back on the same hall this year, and it's been a lot of fun. So, if you want to get into a little bit of your story, just share your testimony a little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, I am a bit of a formal spiritual leader on campus now, and there was a lot of steps that kind of got me to that spot. Yeah, I mean, it started very young in the church, like most people grow up in, doing all the fun church stuff. But I I I got baptized when I was in about third grade. I knew what it meant, from a headspace. But obviously, a lot of us figure out what our baptism means as we get a little bit older, and I definitely fell into that camp for sure. But yeah, kind of growing up in the church, seeing what I'm supposed to be, and living those things out sometimes. I mean, especially in front of family, in particular friends. I got really good at actually practicing what it meant to be a Christian, but I found out really fast, like probably a lot of people, that there's a really easy way to fall into two camps, right? Where you act one way in front of your family, and then you act a different way in front of your friends, and that was definitely me. I went to a really rough elementary school, and that caused me, fall into some crowds that maybe I shouldn't have been in, and well, I definitely shouldn't have been in. Um, but yeah, that formed me. I did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done, even from a very very young age. And growing up, I always kept that. We moved schools. I still, was very one person in church and very different person at school. And I didn't quite realize that to, you read the Bible, you learn about the Bible. I definitely wasn't ready to do anything close to dying to yourself, as we're told to do. So because of that, I wanted every pleasure that I could basically get my hands on. And that led me to do a couple different things. I experimented with a lot of different things like drugs, alcohol, stuff like that. But I also very, very much wanted a relationship. And this would have been about junior high or so. And I got into a relationship with a girl. She sung in her church worship band, which, okay, she's a Christian. I'm a Christian. Neither one of us acted the ways that we were
Yeah.
supposed to. And we ended up doing a lot of stuff sexually that we definitely shouldn't have done. And a lot of it did, I will say, I mean, it did feel pressured towards my direction. There was definitely a lot of manipulation and stuff that I see now, and there's nothing, like, don't get me wrong, there's nothing that I would ever hold against her, right? Because one, of our age, but two, she grew up in a very tough home that she saw all those things exemplified first, and I think she accidentally did them to me kind of unknowingly. But that left me in a really really tough spot. So she was suicidal, and one day she told me, Andrew, if you're not willing to commit to having sex with me, then I don't think you love me, and if you don't love me, then I think I'm gonna probably kill myself. And that was sobering. Everything I've been doing so far was a game, right? You kind of live like what would be like real life with your parents, but then school's a game with no consequences. And now I was sitting here and I perceived massive consequences for what I did next. I either gave up a big part of what I believed to be Christianity, right? Not having sex before marriage, even though I was willing to kind of step up to that line. But I was like, man, I'm either gonna have to give up that big part, like piece of me, or this could have some serious external consequences. And that led me. I'd been lying to my parents about basically everything. I've been doing a little bit of drugs. I've been obviously doing things with this girl that they knew was kind of in my life, and they really didn't want her to be there. And I'd been lying to them about it. And I was at her house. I was on my bike. I was riding back to my house, and she, I just prayed. It was the first time that I'd really prayed and been like just scared. I said, God, I really don't know if you're real because I feel like I can exist here and I can exist here. And there's really no consequences either way. One doesn't just feel way better than the other one. But if you're real, I've really got myself into a bad place. And if you can get me out of it, then I'll give my life to you. And I'll really mean it. And the next day, actually, I got a call from her stepmom. She's not a very nice person. She called me and said, "Do you know what? I don't want to tell you anything about it. You're never going to talk to my daughter again. That's it." And I was really angry at first, right? Because I was like, well, what did I do? I've been trying to be the best person I can for your daughter. I stay up late with her on the phone when she has some of this suicidal ideation stuff. I've sent the police to your house more than once. And I feel like I'm filling in a space that her parents are supposed to. And here I am as a little kid doing that. And then God all of a sudden just hit me and said, Andrew, I wiped your slate clean. I'm done, right? We're done with that. And then there's no going back to this mess that you just found yourself in. I got you out of it. And it was real. That was a real moment for me. I was like, oh my gosh, God is powerful, right? He used someone that I viewed as unrighteous to step in and maybe in their own selfishness or whatever, save me. And I was like, wow, what a powerful, powerful God. And then I went from there into high school. I got in a long-term relationship with someone that was actually very, very good. Then I came to Asbury and we actually broke things off on my way here, which was tough. And I went through a season of aloneness here, which was very, very difficult. I fell into some bad mental traps where I was like, man, I my life feels just purposeless. I get up, I do things, I come back, I go to bed. So I'd wake up, I would go to class, I would come back, I'd lay in my bed, I'd go to class, come back, lay in my bed, wouldn't do anything. And I was like, man, God has just withdrawn. And I got to the point where I was like, man, if God, maybe God's not real. Maybe it was a coincidence, right? And if God's not real, then I then there's really no purpose to life. If there's no purpose to life, then why am I even here? Why do I need to be here? Right? This is hard. Why would I live through this? And I will say that I never actually contemplated anything like suicide, but I did get to the point where logically I could not figure out a reason I would be here unless God was real. And that led me to one night. I was actually at home for the summer, and I was in the shower, and God just hit me. This thing just hit me. I'm doubting. I don't know if God's really even real. Saying hits me. It's like you got to reach out to every guy that that is a Christian. They need to be praying for you right now. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing ever. But you know what? This is one of those moments where I'll see what happens. I'll do it. I've never done something like this before. I'll do it anyway and see what comes out of it. And maybe this will give me a little clue as to whether or not God's really here and present. And the next day, I was pulling out of a store and I didn't put my seatbelt on yet. And a drunk driver hit me going about 60 miles an hour. So I totaled my car, totaled their car. Um, I don't even know what happened. I was sitting in my car. I was listening to Every Praise is to Our God, little gospel music. Um, and I literally had no clue. I was like, wow, that was a loud noise. I think something just happened. What's going on? So I got out of my car and I was like, oh my gosh, that was me. That was me. And I was like, wow, this is a lot to figure out right here, right? But then we get through that kind of process, and then that night I got a dream, and in this dream I see myself and I'm facing this beast. It's huge. I mean, it's feet taller than me, and it's scary, way bigger than I am. I felt like a little kid. It was just scared. I'm standing in front of it, and I'm like, it's just a desert. I'm like, what am I gonna do? This thing is going to have me. Um, and I looked behind me, and behind me was just hundreds of people and warriors. But the faces of these warriors were all people I knew, and they were all the men of God that I'd asked to pray for me. And it was really, I mean, it still gets me, man. It was really, really powerful. And God came down and basically just told me, he's like, look, when you think it's you and something, right? Something's in front of you and that's all you got. Remember the people, the church. Remember the church that you have enacted on your behalf to help you, to aid you, and to come alongside you. And I know some of those big moments, my relationship with Christ has just kind of flourished. And that's something I really am passionate about teaching other people, particularly guys. And yeah, so that's why I'm kind of in this role, and that's a little bit
Yeah.
about how I ended up in my relationship with Christ.
Yeah. So that's a powerful story. Just the reminder that you're not on your own, that there are a bunch of other Christian guys who want to be there and support you, and just to are going to stand and fight with you. What is something that that you've talked about being in this new season, in this new role? What is just something that through this season, through this role, God's really been teaching you, like, and stretching you in right now?
Yeah, yeah. The biggest one, and it is like it is extraordinarily humbling to talk about, but the biggest one is righteousness. And because even on the other side of like living into some of these freedoms that like we get to live in as
Mhm.
Christians, I really found myself not just desiring to look like God all the time. And that was hard. And that kind of is a twofold thing. One, it was, I'd still make fun of people a lot. I would make fun of people. I would look at them. I think that I was better than them. And God, I mean, God called me on it one day. I was talking to this person that would typically be a person that I would make fun of, and I probably had made fun of them behind their back. I could only imagine. And excuse me. And God just I looked at him, and through I felt like I could see through the eyes of Christ, and my heart just broke because like who I would belittle, Christ died for, and I didn't get it. I I just saw them as something that I could use and talk about so I could feel some level of superiority. And I mean, it just broke me, and I started to see it everywhere. Actually, I volunteer with kids with special needs, and I did it for a long time before I had this realization. And I got to this point where in my head, I would say that I would probably admit to, yeah, I am probably better than these people. I think better, I can talk better, I can even like physically move better. All of the things or the attributes of what I thought it meant to be human, I could probably do better than some of these kids. But with my mouth, I'd say I'm just here to help and love on people like God did. And one day I sat down with a kid at lunch, and we were talking, and he made a joke. It was one of these kids I worked with, and he made this joke, and it just made me laugh. I mean, it was funny, and I laughed genuinely. And just like that, God showed me, he goes, "See, that's exactly who he is to me, right? He's an equal, a son of God as you are a son of God. He is unique and holy as I am." And it hit me, and some of these things started happening, and it made me really realize that I really wasn't all that great. I lived it. I was a whitewashed tomb. I lived it outside, but my brain was just full of things that weren't supposed to be there. So that was a big one. The other piece of that was not just not loving people the way I should, but it was not hating the things that I should. I should hate sin. I should hate my sin. And I didn't. I just lived in it. I was apathetic to a lot of it. And I never took an extraordinary radical stance that would let me actually change the sin that was in my life. If my change was going to affect what I believe to be like my reality too much, wasn't worth doing to me. So those are some of the big things that God is definitely like working through me in these
Mhm.
seasons. And it's even more particularly humbling because some of the guys I get to serve with and actually like are in that I am in leadership above. Um, oh, they're better than me, and that's difficult for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've gotten to do some really cool stuff with just this current season. Would what would you say about just like what you've learned through even like recently when you did the men's worship night and just being able to support guys in the current stage of life or guys who are a little bit behind where you're at now?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So for those of you that don't know, me and then another SLC, another spiritual life coordinator, put on a men's worship night for all the men at Asbury, and it was effective. It was really it was a great place to be,
Yeah.
and yeah, I have learned a lot walking alongside of guys, and I think the biggest thing I've learned is that Satan works so well in obscurities and things being opaque, and the spiritual challenges we
Mhm.
have, we just leave them to I was tempted or I was this or guys I fell into sin And what I've realized is growth is right on the other side of extraordinarily radical clarity. So I've really started to push some of the guys that I'm with, say, hey, no, when you confess sins, don't, it's not a confession of, I fell into sin. No, you have to start naming those things and being unashamed to say them in front of brothers of Christ. Because Galatians 6 calls us to bear each other's burdens.
Yeah.
So not only is it good for someone to get those things off, it is a requirement. We are told that we must do it. So not only must we say these things out loud to others, but those other people must help us bear them. And that's Christian
Yeah.
community. And that's been a huge thing that's been really, really helpful is, hey, how do we have conversations where we're using very accurate language? Because at the end of the day, sin is darkness. And if we are going to have something like the truth being like God is light, right? And we need to figure out how to use the light to eradicate the darkness. And one of the ways we can do that is just shining it into some of those places that we've never let lightness come into before. And it's really uncomfortable, but it's been something that I think has caused a lot of growth in the people around us.
Yeah. And we've talked a bit about recently just how you really feel like one thing that guys really need to do more of is that they need to get into positions of service.
Mhm.
And would you want to touch on like some of that vision that God's really been putting on your heart about just like creating space for that and encouraging people into that?
Yeah, yeah. So service is obviously something that is a requirement of just Christians as a whole, right? We are called to go out and serve, whether it be the widows and the orphans, or whether it's just to go out and share the gospel to the world. That is a service. But in my position, I am focused on what do we do to better the spiritual vitality of Christian men, and one of those big aspects I think is service. It's something that Christ did, and if Christ did it, then we should do it too. And what I've noticed is through my time volunteering, I volunteered a lot of hours with kids with special needs now, and it literally, like I said earlier, I mean, it changed my perspective on all of humanity, what it means to be a human. I mean, I've taken classes on it, philosophy and stuff, where you kind of dig into these things, but the things that I've experienced that will never leave me are what I have seen on the other side of service. So for men, I think it's really, really important that we get out and serve. And like I said, in my capacity dealing with men, I have to look at, okay, what are the characteristics of a godly man? And how do we put ourselves in positions that really allow those characteristics to either flourish or allows us to practice those characteristics if we're not that good at them? And one of those is serving other people. It's being selfless. And yeah, so through some sort of like community service, and not just once, not just, okay, we go out and do this, but through a continual habitual community service, you get the ability to put others before yourself. And depending on how you do it, you'll also be in a place where people don't appreciate how much time you put into it. They don't appreciate the financial burden it might be for you. They don't appreciate the mindsets you have around it. And that's good. Like, that is so good, because what that means is you're starting to know what it looks like to be like Christ, right? Because he did it first. He was unappreciated first. I mean, in my life, I've had that happen where, some of these kids will just, they'll complain, or they'll make fun of you, right? But you can't say anything back. You just have to take it. And then you sit there and go, I mean, I remember praying, going, God, none of these kids care that I'm here. Like, why do I need to keep showing up? That was a selfish thought, but God said, you did it to me first, man. I showed up every day, every second, and you ignored me. You made fun of me. You did all those things first. And now, through this suffering, although it be small, through this suffering, you learn a little bit more what it looks like to be like me. And that's huge. I think it's a pinnacle piece for men, especially young men with a lot of just vitality in general and energy and strength. It's something that I think is imperative for the church to use.
Yeah, that's awesome. And as you're entering into this next stage of life, you're going to be graduating soon. You're going to be getting married.
Yeah.
What is just something that like you feel like? I mean, where it's always more room to grow. What is something that God is really still wanting to mature in you and grow in you in this next season?
Yeah, that's good. So yeah, I am getting married to a beautiful, beautiful woman named Virginia, and there's a lot. There is a lot that goes along with that. That is just beyond my comprehension. I would say that yes, I am graduating. I'll be moving into my master's degree, so I'm kind of like I'm like fake graduating. I am, but it's still going. But but the marriage piece, I think, is the biggest thing I can see on the horizon, that like these blessings that God has. Now, not blessings like feel good blessings,
Yeah.
but blessings of, wow, you are about to spiritually mature. This is going to be a catalyst for some real spiritual maturity. And one of those is dying to yourself. I mean, I recognize I am a selfish person. I just am. There's a lot of things I don't think Christians are willing to say, and that's one of them for me. I'm selfish. I doubt. I have struggles, right? And that selfishness is confronted every day by a love that I have for my fiance. It has to be. I can choose her. I can choose me. But there's not a lot of times where I get to choose both.
Yeah.
And you know, what we're called to, right, is we're called as husbands to lay down our lives for our wives as Christ did the church. And a lot of us love the heroic piece of that, right? Like, yeah, I will go to battle for my wife. You know, if there's an adversary, I will face it. If there is a path, I'll take it. You know, if there is a river, I'll cross it. Um, but that's not, Christ did that once, right? He went to that heroic state once, and honestly, looking back on it, it looks heroic, but at the time, it's humiliating for him. Um, so what are we really called to do? Like, what does dying really look like? It's like, well, it's dying to our desires, to pick up what is better for them. And I've been able to practice it as we wedding plan and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and different opinions, but I can see the actual growth. I think if I'm humble enough to accept it, I think that there is a lot of growth that's right about to be had
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. Those are very real reminders,
Yeah.
and I'm glad I'm not as far along in the wedding planning as you are.
Yeah, this guy's getting married too. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it's definitely a it's a whole process
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And then one last question,
Yeah.
just for what would you say would be the best piece of advice you could give to a believer who might resonate with your story, and just the biggest takeaway you could give them, just to encourage them,
Yeah.
and just a piece of advice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you are a younger Christian, you have to be able to take the things that you struggle with and say them out loud. And it feels like you will feel judgment. It feels like people will belittle you. It might actually even feel a little bit humiliating. And first, that's okay. And there's a reason you feel those things. It's sin, right? And sin isn't supposed to feel good. It's definitely not supposed to feel good when people find out about it, right? And you've been hiding it. It's been very easy, and now it's not. But I'd say the first thing you could do is take advantage of your young steps in Christianity, traject yourself properly out of the gate in anything you struggle with. Figure out what they are, do a lot of inward reflection, and take them to someone. Take them to someone that can hold you accountable, that can pray for you. Take them to someone that you would say is righteous. And we're told that the prayers of the righteous cover a multitude of sins, that they're powerful, right? So take them to those people so they can help you. I mean, if you doubt whether or not Christ God loves you, take it to someone. If you doubt whether or not he even exists, take it to someone. If you struggle with anything, whatever it may be, you lie too much. There was a time where I lied, I stole, I cheated, I fornicated. In the eyes of God before Christ, I was a liar, cheater, stealing, fornicator, right? And but Christ redeems all of those things, and you'll never know what that fully means until you're able to get them out there in the light. So I'd say be brutally honest with yourself and get those things out there. And yes, it will feel a certain way, but oh my gosh, it's literally, I can't express it enough. It is the most freeing thing you could ever do with your life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. When we wrap up our episodes, well, the last thing that I really like to do is just ask how I can be praying for the guest on the show, and just we close in prayer, just over you and over the people viewing. So, is there anything in specific that you'd like?
Yeah, I would say that that one big one, marriage,
Yeah.
right? It's coming up. There's always so much prayer to be done for that,
Yeah.
right? Then another one is that I continue to grow in who I'm supposed to be, that my heart would be softened, and because sometimes that can be a real challenge. And then attached to also my leadership here, that I continue to if I haven't led well, that I would lead well, and if I have, that I would continue to. So
Yeah.
those are probably the big ones for me.
All right. Yeah. So we'll just take a minute in prayer and dear Lord, I just want to thank you. Thank you for this episode, Lord, that you just were able to make this happen. And I just pray for just the vulnerability that you gave Andrew to be just willing to share all of those things, Lord, to and the humility of just to be able to admit where he still needs to grow, Lord. And I pray that you continue to refine him and work in his heart, Lord. And I thank you for the blessing that marriage is, and I pray that you just continue to just grow him as he steps into that, Lord, and that you just bless him in Virginia, and that you just that you encourage any believers who are watching this video, Lord, who may have also just had some sexual missteps earlier in their walk. That doesn't mean that it has to be their end of their story. That you can still bless them with a healthy and good relationship, Lord, and that you just um, help in this season of transition for Andrew, Lord. That while he finishes up school, that he remains diligent in his role of as a ministering to people on campus, Lord, and that you continue to give him the vision of what that should look like, and just that he will continue to just pray big prayers for people here, Lord, and to just see ways that he can make an impact and make that clear to him, Lord. And as he steps into that new season, show him what his ministry impact is going to look like then as well, and just continue to just bless him in this transitional season, Lord. And I just pray for whatever the people who are watching this also are in constant seasons of transition and growth, that you just continue to just give them the sense of peace and to surround them with the community of just brothers and sisters in Christ that he was so encouraged by at his lowest, Lord. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Well, that concludes episode 3 of People of the Process. And I am excited to announce we will be continuing our 1 to 2 times a monthly format. And I hope that you, if you haven't yet, please subscribe, like or share the video, and just let me know if there's any people or content that you want to see in the future. Have a great day. And remember, we're all in the process of growing. Let's grow closer towards Christ.